I don't know how to go first in front of him. I mean, my gosh, all your expertise. So here's the deal, folks. Our stuff's old. To put it in very simple terms, it's very, very old, and it's expensive to fix. You know, we faced the same exact problem with our roads, and we chose to go down a sales tax route to try and solve those problems as opposed to raising the mill levy. And folks have generally supported us going out and fixing the roads. So, you know, this is the same, essentially the same boat we're in now. We've just chosen a different method to pay for it in that we've got to get out there and fix that. You know, I would encourage folks in the public, if they have an idea on how to fund it that is not a rate increase, let us know. I mean, if they want to do another sales tax initiative, that's, you know, fine by me. At the end of the day, we have to have more revenue to cover repairing this stuff. You know, half of it is revenue and half of it is being more efficient with our staff. And we've done a lot of work on the more efficient with staff to the point where if we don't inject more capital, the staff can't continue to be more efficient and fix more things because we won't have the money to buy the pipe that they're putting in the ground. Thank you.
Councilman Dobler, drop some knowledge.
I don't know if this is knowledge, but another way to look at it, this is really a symptom of a city that's not growing. And if you think about utilities, we had an action earlier tonight with the subdivision. The developer pays for all the infrastructure. The city, or in this case a county, collects the utility fees from that development. So if a city's growing, it's kind of like a pyramid scheme. You know, you're adding infrastructure, you're not paying for it, but you're collecting utility fees. We're not growing, and as Councilman Jensen so eloquently put it, stuff's getting old. Somebody's got to pay for it. And we don't have that growth to sustain a lot of what we're doing. Thanks.
Yes, we do have two individuals signed up for public comment, and we can continue the discussion later on with our expert from Black and Beach. The first person signed up to speak is Mr. Tim Zarowski.
Thank you. Did a great job, man. Thank you. Tim Zarowski. Nobody wants to increase. One of my first thoughts, top of my list, was what Councilman Dobler just went through, is we don't have the growth. So you have all these expenses, you have all this infrastructure that's failing because it's so old. But we don't have people coming in. Several years ago, we paid, I think it was $80,000 or so for a report. I think it was a Gardner report, if I recall. Did we do anything? Do we implement anything from that recommendation? Did we? I'm sorry, I'm not really all into government and what's going on with the city. But I know one of the major problems is that we don't have growth. We've got to address that issue. You know, a city's got a lot of needs. You've got your roads, and it goes on and on, right? You deal with it every day. But the problem is people are leaving. They're not coming in. They're not coming here to spend money and live here. They're saying, how fast can I get out of this town? And that's an issue. We have to deal with that issue. That's core. We have to find a way to get past that and get growth. Once we get growth, then revenue will come, then we'll have money for all these other things. I've got a lot to say about it, but quite frankly, Anna White, you know, she's done her homework, that group. They've done a great job. They brought a lot of things to our attention. I applaud you all for recognizing the fact that we have a need and getting on it. It's important. You're doing a great job. Core is growth. You've got to find a way for growth. Bring the money in. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. The next person signed up to speak on this issue is Mr. Joseph Ledbetter. Our very own Joseph Ledbetter.
I want to get that extra 4 minutes back. Okay. One of my sons who told me he was thinking about moving to Lawrence the other day, and he's got the money to move. He can do it. He lives over in Oakley. He's tired of his water not working. He's tired of his kids. I think they had yellow water for 3 days, maybe it was 4 days, just this fall. He said, I'm tired of it. I don't have to put up with this. I can go to a city where they actually have water that works. But he also said, because he regulates banks, he said, I was talking to him about the amount of revenue bonds we're starting to borrow. He said that's only done in cities that are growing. And I'm looking at exponential growth of the revenue bonds that we're borrowing. And I don't have all the numbers because I don't have the time. You know, I can make some more time, but I tell you, we are borrowing exponential amounts of money in revenue bonds, and I want the numbers, and I've sent you all an email. There's some things I want to know. One of the things that you do when you're problem solving is define the problem. It's not just we have aging infrastructure, it's how are we going to fix it? And I'm not hearing anything in these PowerPoints about the amount of miles of pipes we're going to fix, the different sizes of pipes. I know that we have about 600 miles of distribution pipes, which are cheaper to fix, but those are the kinds that are breaking all the time in these neighborhoods. Talked to a gentleman over the 3900 block of Gamwell. He's lived there 15 years. He's had 17 breaks. Each break cost this city, I've been talking to different people, work for the city, about $2,500. They could replace that whole block with new pipe, PVC, that wouldn't break many years ago, with cash. Cash is king. We are not, in my opinion, running this utility the correct way. We have a lot of broken pipe, or pipe that's worn out before its time. It should be lasting 100 years. It's going out in 50 because we put the wrong kind of pipe in the ground by the so-called experts years ago. I talked to some people about that. Engineers that said unwrapped ductile pipe is just fine when they should have been putting PVC in the ground. And we did that. I checked 240 miles of it. So that's a tremendous problem. Now, it's not all going to break today, and it's not all going to break tomorrow. One thing you've got on your side here is I looked at this ordinance. We've got another year before we have to do anything. I mean, we can at least plan this thing right and not do death by PowerPoint. And that's from General Mathis. I'm reading his book on leadership. He said, never allow yourself to be sucked into the PowerPoints. He said, ask the tough questions, make it tough, ask your troops what's going on, get out in the field and see what's going on, and actually dig into the problem. And in this case, I'm hearing more about bonds than I'm hearing about how we're going to fix the problem. I'm hearing about reserves that, to me, are ridiculous. That's not what we were taught at KU. We were taught 15% is sufficient for cities and counties, and many, many well-run cities and counties in this country operate on 15% reserves. We have had the money to fix a lot of these problems and start replacing these pipes. It costs $660,000 to replace 1 mile of distribution lines. We could have been doing that. I went back and looked at the numbers because I asked a lot of questions after my son had these problems. Okay, I'm out of time.
Mr. Ledbetter, would you like an extension?
Yes. I'd like 4 minutes, please. Think about it, it's
Councilman
free.
Jensen?
Motion to approve 4 minutes of the Reverend Ledbetter.
We have a
That's your
motion
fault.
by Councilman Jensen. We have a second.
By the way, you prayed real well.
Councilman Emerson. We proceed with voting for an additional 4 minutes for Mr. Ledbetter.
Amen. Okay. I said you
We have
prayed
9
real
yes.
well.
9 having voting yes, the motion passes. Mr. Ledbetter, you may proceed.
Thank you. Out of 300 cities that were studied, I didn't hear this in the PowerPoints, the water department told me this. We were compared to 300 cities, and we were the only one that had this anomaly of 57 breaks per 100 miles annually. That was approximate number. Compared to the average of these other cities was 17 breaks. I didn't hear that in the report. Why I'm giving you these statistics is because we have not defined the problem. And until we define the problem thoroughly, that means go really deep into what is going on with our utility system, specifically the water. That's where I see the problems. We cannot possibly solve this problem in the right way. We will say, like we did 3 years ago, let's increase the amount of revenue. 6% a year is what they voted on. I remember coming down here and saying, where are the statistics? Where is the agreement in writing that you're going to replace new miles of pipes? It was nowhere. I said, you're not going to get any more. So one of the numbers I asked them to produce for me was how many miles of pipe are we replacing every year? Because I knew it was about 3. It's been about 3 forever, except back when they got rid of the rusty water problem. Then we did about 10 miles a year, and it was a pretty successful cleanup of those problems over 4 years. So one of the years they only did 2.5 miles. So what they're doing is basically they're replacing water lines under streets that we're redoing. Well, that makes sense. Anybody would figure that out. I mean, even us non-engineers would know to do that. But where was the money being spent additionally for that increase? Well, I started talking to some of the past people that worked for the water department, and they said they've been charging an awful lot of money to revenue bonds and really spending a lot of money on commissions and points and all the financing things that go on with bonds. And it's almost, this was this person's opinion, it's almost like it's a charge card for your groceries. So you just keep charging it, and this is going eventually to just spin out of control. Way too much debt. And what I'm saying tonight is stop borrowing. Stop it. Turn it off. Make this thing operate operationally on cash. Get these reserves to work in new water lines so we don't have all these breaks, which are driving up our cost. It's all connected, folks. You're not going to get it on a PowerPoint presentation. You're going to have to ask the tough questions of staff and actually get out in the field and see what's going on. And our labor costs are too high. We need to do more privatization of these repairs. Now, one of the things I suggested to Parks and Rec when the county took it over several years back, and this is before I was on the advisory, I said, cut a lot of your costs by privatizing your mowing. They've been doing that. Half your parks are mowed by private contractors. And those parks look really good. I know which ones are done by the private contractors. And they have saved a lot of money by doing that. You can privatize, get more contractors involved doing these repairs, quit paying this outlandish overtime that you were paying. I went back and looked in 2013. One of the guys was here with the bargaining unit this summer when they were griping about they didn't want a second shift. I looked up an article. He'd been paid $162,000 that year in 2013. And guess what? All that overtime, we got to pay retirement off that overtime. That's how that was figured. You think he knew about it? Oh, yeah. He knew that. He wasn't dumb. But we, the ratepayers, are dumb because we keep putting up with this. We are not asking the tough questions how to solve the problem. In this book by Mathis, he says that there was a quote by Einstein. I thought it was remarkable. And Einstein was asked, if the world was going to end and you had the power to fix it and you had 1 hour to do it, how would you divide your time? And I have to believe Einstein, as smart as he was, he just said it right like this. He said, I would spend 55 minutes defining the problem and 5 minutes fixing it. We're not spending enough time by going through a PowerPoint presentation and asking a few questions to solve this problem and understand how deep it is. We have got to go deep. We need to spend probably the next 6 months, not just one, public hearing over at the library on December 5th where we've got 1 hour and a half. And I hope that the staff doesn't take up all the time and lets the public talk. But we should be notifying Reesers. We should be notifying Mars. We should be notifying Parks and Rec and all of these entities and all the churches and the microbreweries, everybody that's involved in using water. What do you think? What do you want? And getting their opinions. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Ledbetter.